I've had a lot of questions so far about Boolean operations and how to complete them. So this video will go over 4 different types of Boolean operations. So we have a union, a split, a difference, and an intersect. So for most Boolean operations, you require 2 or more solid objects. The exception to that we went over in class would be the Boolean split, which can technically be done with 1 solid and 1 plane or other surface like that. So we're going to first go over just basically what a Boolean operation is doing. So if we take a look at these 2 objects, we're just going to copy them up and take a look at these. So the first thing that we have to do to complete a Boolean operation is, and this is for all Boolean operations, is that we're going to find an intersection point. So if we do an intersect here, you see that this curve is going to pop up, which is going to register basically where these 2 objects are intersecting. Now if we take this and we look at the separate components of this, so if we look at first the sort of rectangular prism and then the sphere here, the next step is always going to be a trim. So here in this case, we're going to look at a union for our first object. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to copy these over. We'll copy over from this point. So we'll just show this as the progression through each of the 4 different kinds. So here what we're going to do is we're going to take these 2 curves and we're going to go do a trim. And that one's not working. There we go. So now we've trimmed out those surfaces, so we can go ahead and move this one back from endpoint to endpoint, and if we go in and join those, what we're going to end up is with 1 object. So this would be a Boolean union. So if here we do Boolean union, you'll see that we end up with the same result as this guy. So the next one we're going to go over is the Boolean difference. So here basically what we're going to do is we're going to use the sphere to remove this corner chunk from this object. So we're going to take this curve and we're going to do a trim. So we've removed that, now we have a hole in there. So we're going to take this curve and we're going to trim away that portion. We'll move this guy back, and that's what we end up with. So you can see now if we go through our Boolean operation here, so if we do a Boolean difference, it's going to ask us for the surfaces that we want to subtract from, that's going to be this guy. Then it's going to ask the surfaces we want to subtract with, we're going to select that one, and you see that we end up with the same thing. The next one we're going to look at is an intersection. So this one is basically looking at if we want basically that chunk that's left over where the 2 objects intersect, that's what this is going to be. So we're going to look at using this curve to run a trim there, and then we're going to use this curve to run a trim there, and we'll actually move this guy back, and we're going to end up with a chunk here that is the intersection of those 2. So if we run a Boolean intersection here, the first set of surfaces is that one, the second set is going to be that one, and we're going to end up with that chunk, same as we have there. And then the last one we're going to go over is a Boolean split. So here what we can look at is actually using this trim curve to do a split. So if we run a regular split, we're going to select the objects, we're going to select the curve, so now we actually have these 2 individual pieces. So we'll just pull that guy off. Now what we're going to do is take this curve and run a trim, and now we'll copy this guy back onto the edge there, back on there, and basically what you've done here is created 2 solid objects. So here if we look at doing a Boolean split, we want to split this one with this cutting surface. We're going to go ahead and delete that, and now you end up with the same 2 chunks. So you can see that the Boolean operations are really actually just a way of really quickly doing intersecting, splitting, trimming, and then rejoining of objects. So they're very, very useful, but just be careful about when you're using them in the setup for the actual files. Most cases you need to have solids, the first go-to solution if it's not working is to just make sure that you actually do have two solid objects, because that's going to throw the most red flags.